So, Jerry, tell me about this amazing movie that you're working on. You worked on. It's called Quiet Explosions.
Quiet Explosions Healing the Brain. Yes. About traumatic brain injury and PTSD. And it affects many, many veterans and athletes and civilians. And we are doing something groundbreaking in this movie. We're showing the treatment, the healing, the hope, and the cure, and how people are getting better.
That's incredible. And what made you decide to do this project?
Well, Sammy, I was approached by the woman who was working on Andrew Marr and Adam Marr's book, Tales from the Blast Factory. And she knew me from where I grew up in Fall River. I was her babysitter when I was 16. And she said she had been following my career my whole life and knew I made really nice, important documentaries. And she felt that this was the best book ever and that I should make the movie of it. So I said, well, you'll have to send the galleys because everybody tells me they have the best movie ever, the best book. So I read the book. I was quite taken with the veterans. I couldn't believe what they went through. And I was even more taken with the doctor who was helping them and getting them onto a path of a healed life. So I said, sure, you can tell him to call me. And the veteran, Andrew, called me, flew out from Texas, and we talked. And he saw a lot of my work and he said, you have the rights to the book, to this book.
Wow, it's incredible. And what do you think is the most important thing you learned from doing this, making this book into a movie?
Well, what I learned is that regardless of who the person was, regardless of age, where they lived in the country, ethnicity, social economic status, they all ended up with the same horrible symptoms from this horrible thing in their brain. So it was so funny when I got all of them together for like the cast thing at the end when we watched the movie. They were crying with each other that they all found somebody who had the same, depression, anxiety, insomniac, suicidal ideation, and went through all of this together. But then they were all being helped and cured through these doctors. So I think I was amazed, and I also learned a lot about the new methods of healing, because I'm not a medical person. So I had no clue that TMS could help them, or hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and so on.
It's very interesting. What would you say was the biggest challenge about making the movie?
The biggest challenge for me was getting an NFL football player to speak out and come into the film. That was really difficult. I tried for 2 years, and a lot of football players that I met and talked to, they got skittish and they were afraid. They didn't want to, talk or speak in the movie about the NFL. So that was the biggest challenge. I finally got 2 fantastic people who are in the movie.
Yeah, why do you think that was such a big challenge? Would they get in trouble with the NFL, or they just didn't want to talk about it, or is it just one of those things where?
Well, the NFL doesn't want to admit that there's a problem or that football, causes brain injury, and it really does. And I think that because the lawsuit was happening, they were afraid. They were afraid that they might not get some money that they were owed, or they were really nervous, some of them. Mark Rippon, who was the quarterback for the Washington Redskins and a Super Bowl MVP, he's in the film and he speaks beautifully and really speaks from the heart. And also Anthony Davis, who only was in football for 5 years and then left because he felt like his brain was getting so messed up. But he really speaks out totally. Like he says, look, it's okay that you have a helmet on your head, but it's not going to help your brain.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think they haven't found a way to better protect the brains and heads of NFL players, especially?
Well, it's not just them. I mean, soccer players or boxers or anybody. But
right.
You have a very hard skull, and inside there is the very soft brain that's almost like jello, really, really soft. So when it gets pushed around, it hits the hardness of the skull, and it just, keeps getting impaired. And it, you could, like Anthony says in the movie, you could put a tank around your head. It's not going to help.
Fair enough. Yeah, I never thought of it that way. I thought, why don't they just get better head protection? But you're right. I didn't think of it in that way. I never thought of it, which is something you learn. You learn something new every day. And I'm sure your movie is going to be teaching them that.
Yeah, everybody who sees it, I mean, many doctors have seen it, and they came to me and said, I've been in practice 20 years and I learned so much from your movie that I didn't know. So it's really amazing that there's so much groundbreaking information out there.
Exactly. And are you planning on maybe making a sequel of this and taking it further and maybe speaking to more veterans or more NFL players or more people with traumatic brain injuries in the future?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because there's a gentleman, a PhD psychologist, who just wrote a book about the brain trauma from auto accidents and TBI from auto accidents. And we talked about a sequel or something about making a movie about that. But also someone contacted me who works with a lot of inmates in the prisons, veterans too, but people who are in prison who have a lot of traumatic brain injury and a lot of PTSD. And he said, we should make a movie about that. So, there's a lot of different subjects that are coming up, and we'll see. I want to just take the time to launch this one properly.
That's wonderful. I hope you get to do another one because this one is absolutely incredible. And I think it's going to be teaching people so much. And that's what we need right now, especially with the post-traumatic stress that my cat pushed me off the chair for, but almost had a brain injury here because he jumped. He's a 20-pound cat that but back in more seriousness, but yeah, I think it's just a great way to teach people about brain injuries and post-traumatic stress and stuff like that. I was talking to Andrew before, incredible gentleman there, and it's just, this is something we need to know, but it's something that is never spoken about. And I think you guys are opening up a wonderful conversation about this.
Thank you, Sammy, for watching the film and saying all that. I mean, it's true. We want to create awareness, firstly, because it isn't talked about a lot and it's sort of shunned. And it's a silent illness. It's not like if a guy comes back from war and he lost an arm or he's in a wheelchair or lost a leg. I mean, you can see that. So this needs to be out there in the world. And now I think hopefully, like you said, we'll start a conversation if everybody watches it and then shares it and people, say, hey, I have a neighbor, I have a friend or cousin who has a brain problem, whatever. Then I think we'll start to really make progress and help the world.
And what are you working on next now that this movie is airing and people are talking about it?
Well, I have a couple of books that have been sent to me and people that want them made into a movie, specifically one, a boxer who was a boxer for 30 years. And he heard about my brain movie and he wrote a book. And I'm looking at, I'm reading the books and I'm deciding what will be next. But it's all about the funding. You have to have when someone says, hey, I have the funding, okay, we can make the movie. But, that's kind of where it begins. But it takes a long time to really get this movie properly out. I'm doing like interviews and podcasts 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 a week. And I want to make sure that really everybody sees it on Vimeo or Amazon, or going to the website quietexplosions.com to learn more about all of these things, like you said, so they can educate themselves and perhaps make their life better.
Well, I hope they watch it as well because it's, like I said, it's a very important topic that's not spoken about. And I think we're opening up a wonderful conversation here.
Thank you, Sammy. I agree. I think that, my dad was a veteran from World War II. My husband was a veteran from the Vietnam War time. And then, of course, I met, these guys, Kevin, Andrew, Ben, and Annie from Afghanistan, Iraq, and all. So I feel like sort of, an affiliation with all these people. And my mother was the president of the Jewish War Veterans and very, very involved on a national level. So if I can just make that number come down, 20 veterans today commit suicide each day. If they see this movie, they get treatment, and this number can come way down, I've done my work.
Yeah, I know one personally that died that way, and it was such a tragedy. So if you can save one life, I think that's well worth it.
For sure, for sure. Were you
And
surprised in the movie that about Annie having these symptoms from a rape?
I was and I wasn't because you never know what can trigger it. So it could be something from war, it can be something like a rape, it could be an abusive relation, it could be so much that triggers post-traumatic stress.
Mm-hmm.
It's just very tragic, and the more we know about it, the more we can help people in the future.
Right. And they're finding out more about it every day. I mean, look at Sean, our surfer guy. He did hyperbaric oxygen therapy twice a day for months and months and months. And he really brought his life back.
It was so incredible. Like I said, I'm hoping we can help more people with this, because like I said, it's something that's so shunned, and it shouldn't be. We should be out there talking about it. We should be bringing awareness to it. And I think this is the first big step to do it. And I commend you and Andrew and Annie and Sean for bringing awareness. And
Oh,
thank you for doing that.
thank you so much. It was like a thread that kept going. I was weaving a story because I first met Andrew and Dr. Gordon. And then the next thing I know, I'm like, well, Andrew and Dr. Gordon, do you know a female? I need a female. And they told me about Annie. And, one thing led to another. And then Dr. Gordon told me about Juliana, the gymnast. It just kind of kept going. And it's interesting. You saw Ben, the Marine. My granddaughter, who was 14 at the time and lives in New Jersey, she got me Ben.
Oh, wow.
She said to me, she's very smart, and she said, Nana, I think you should have that guy Ben from Survivor in your movie, because he has PTSD and he used to be a Marine. And I said, oh, that's a great idea, Rachel, but how would I get him? How would I, go to get to him? And she said, well, my good friend, my best friend in Florida, his father was in Survivor with Ben. So I'll call him right now and get you the information. You got me the information. I contacted Ben, and Ben was very excited about the project, but he said, I just won the $1 million, so call me in a few weeks. I called him in a few weeks, and he said, I really want to do this. I think it's a great project, but Jerri, I just found out that CBS owns me for a year.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, you have to clear this with CBS. I'll give you the producer's number and all that. And I thought, oh my goodness, how am I going to ever get this from CBS? So I called and I gave them the pitch and told them what I was doing. And they got back to me and they said, we really love your project. We believe in it, and you have our blessing, and you can do anything you want with Ben.
Happenstance. That's amazing. And he probably is saving incredible lives here. So that's great divine intervention right there. And first of all, you don't look old enough to be a grandma.
Oh, thank you. I have 5 grandchildren.
Never would have guessed. I thought you were at most late 40s or something.
Oh my God, you're so kind. I've been married 51 years.
What's your secret? I mean, I need to know how you look so gorgeous.
Thank you so much. I think you have to have a lot of love in your life, and you have to find joy in every day. And I try to help people. Everything I do has to positively influence society. And that's how I live my life. And that's how I do it.
Well, that's the fountain of youth. That's it right there.
And also nutrition, and also vitamins. I mean, every single day, vitamin D3, DHEA, pregnenolone.
Good to know. Good to know. Adding them to my grocery list when I have to buy vitamins again.
Good.
And one thing I love to ask people that I interview is, tell me a fun fact about yourself that might surprise people.
Well, I wasn't trained to be in films. I never went to film school. And my first career, I was an art professor. I have a BFA, Bachelor of Fine Arts, and a master's in art education. Then I spent 20 years in the trucking business. I was the first female in the Northeast corridor going into trucking and negotiating the freight contracts for Fortune 500 companies. But I didn't know at the time it was getting me ready to be a producer. And I wrote a story about a woman in the trucking business, and that's how I got in the movie business.
Wow, you're just such a great role model. You're amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But also the other little fact is that all the men that I produced for, I finally went to them and said, I want to direct my own movie. And they said, well, you cannot, because number 1, you're a female. Number 2, you never went to film school. And number 3, you're from Massachusetts. And the more they told me I couldn't, I said, I will.
Good for you. Good for you. And you showed them.
Yeah. And 2 Emmys later,
Yes. I would have been there with my Emmy, like, pooey on you. Look at this.
Right.
Well, I could say something else, but we're on air, so I can't say it. And my last question is, since we're a TV site, what are you watching on TV these days?
Oh, I love Grey's Anatomy, Chicago Med. I love Blacklist. I love drama. I love all drama. You know, I watch Chicago Fire. I watch just a lot of medical shows. I really like Transplant is a new one
That's
that
a good one. I like that one a lot.
I love Transplant. Yep. And I just, you know, whatever has drama in it. I love drama.
I do too. Have you seen The Good Doctor? That's another good medical drama that I love.
Love that. My
Yes.
husband just loves that main character. He's fantastic.
Oh yeah, Freddie Highmore's a fantastic actor. Maybe you'll get to work with him one day.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah. I mean, between this
And
show
Shark
and
Tank. I love Shark Tank.
yes, Shark Tank is incredible too. I mean, Barbara is a great role model too. You and Barbara need to work together next.
Oh, that would be great.
Yes.
Or Mark Cuban. I'd work with him any day.
Yeah, me too. He's so good looking and so smart and nice.
Smart. But you know how I got like this? I'll tell you. I was trained by Tony Robbins. Do you know Tony Robbins?
I do know Tony Robbins. Yeah.
So way back when I was in trucking and worked for God, GOD, which stood for Guaranteed Overnight
Guaranteed
Delivery.
overnight delivery. Yes.
Yeah, Tony trained us, and I went to his castle in Del Mar for like 5 days and did his date with destiny, and broke wood with my bare hands and all. Walked on the hot coals, and I really believe it was my training in the early '80s that made me able to do anything, move mountains. You know.
Wow, you're incredible. You need your own book and your own movie about you.
Oh, thank you. Well,
Wonderful.
You should read that book about the twig painter. It's on my website. Everything's on my website, jerrysure.com.
Wonderful. I'll make sure I check it out and have everybody else check it out. And thank you for taking the time today. I really appreciate you.
Well, thank you. And we hope everybody goes to quietexplosions.com so they can stream the movie on Amazon or Vimeo.
All right. We're going to make it happen. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Sammy. You're great.
Thanks. You too. Bye-bye.